It's nice to have you all here. Some of you have attended the week-long retreat for many years now. And some of you, this is your first time, but this is kind of an annual event. Until now, until last year actually, it was held at Cloud Mountain, a retreat center on the other side of the state. But now that we have the Abbey, and now that we have more accommodation, then we can have the retreat here, which is very nice. And, all of you who helped to build Gotami House and just enabled us to get the Abbey to start with, thank you so much. And welcome to the place that you helped to come into existence. Yeah. So we're going to embark on a week-long vacation with Chenrezig. So when you go back to work and your colleagues say, "Where did you go on vacation?" you can say, "I went to Chenrezig's Pure Land." Because if you say, "I went on a meditation retreat," they may say, "Oh, why don't you get a life? You're just sitting there looking at your belly button." So if you say, "I went to Chenrezig's Pure Land," then they go, "Oh. How was the food there?" "Oh, very good." Okay. So really think of the next week as the beginning of a long vacation that hopefully will never end at the Pure Land of the Buddha of Compassion. Okay? And so let your mind fill with compassion. Let your mind be joyful. Sukhavati is the name of the Pure Land where Chenrezig is. Sukhavati means the land of bliss, land of joy. So let your mind be like that. Okay? And this ties into one of the reasons why the retreat is done in silence, is our ordinary way of looking at ourselves. We create so many identities. I am this, I am that, I can't do this, I'm hopeless at that. And all that way of thinking of ourselves is a big hindrance. When we talk to other people, we often reinforce that very concrete, often negative self-image. So when we don't talk to others, then we don't have a chance to tell them who we are. And so that actually helps our mind. It gives us a little bit more space so that we can think of ourselves in a different way. So we can consider ourselves as compassionate beings. So we can consider ourselves as people who have a link with the Buddha of compassion. Okay? So that we can think of ourselves as beings who don't have a concrete essence, but are fluid and dependent. Okay? So, that's the reason for the silence. Silence is not because we're mad at each other. I know in some people's homes, silence meant there was going to be an explosion, but that's not why we're silent here. It's for a completely different reason. Okay, so really take that opportunity to find quiet space inside yourself. A couple of the main things that we'll be emphasizing during the retreat are, of course, compassion, because we're meditating on Chenrezig. We'll also be having teachings on the text 108 verses of compassion. So clearly compassion is a major theme here. So we have to understand properly what compassion means, that it doesn't mean feeling sorry for people. Okay? It doesn't mean feeling a sense of personal distress because we can't bear to see them suffering. It doesn't mean getting discouraged because we can't see any way that ourselves and others can be liberated from suffering. So none of those kinds of thoughts are involved in the real meaning of compassion. Yeah, instead, compassion simply is the wish for ourselves and others to be free of the dukkha of cyclic existence. So the dukkha means all the unsatisfactory experiences entailed by cyclic existence, entailed or brought about by being under the control of ignorance, afflictions, and karma. So we feel compassion, but we have to have confidence when we feel compassion. Yes, we have to have that confidence that dukkha can be eliminated, and that the confidence that when it's eliminated, there's a state of liberation, and as well as a state of full enlightenment that can be attained. And then with that, we want to attain that full enlightenment and be able to lead others there as well. So this whole practice of compassion isn't just to make our heart ache. Yeah, we can do that very well without the Buddha teaching us. Okay, the whole practice of compassion is to energize us so that we use our potential and find ways, follow the path to enlightenment, and then use skillful means in benefiting others to practice that path as well. Okay, so don't think of compassion as something depressing. Don't think of it as something wimpy, like compassion means you just say yes to whatever everybody else wants. That's not the meaning of compassion. Okay, it takes a lot of confidence to be compassionate. It takes a lot of fortitude and ability to keep going in spite of hindrances and obstacles. Yeah. So, if you're the kind of person that likes challenges, being compassionate is a good challenge, Yeah. Some people like to challenge themselves, by skydiving or, all these kinds of things. So this is another kind of challenge. So compassion is one thing. And our compassion has to start right here and now. So it's not just for other beings on the other side of the planet. It's also for each other. Okay? And compassion is very involved with respect. Yeah, we can't be compassionate for beings that we don't respect. Mm-hmm. And we can't respect others if we can't see their good qualities. And we can't see their good qualities if we're angry at them. Yeah. So if we really want to integrate compassion, it has to start with the people here that are surrounding us and respecting them, seeing their good qualities, and releasing, letting go of any kind of irritation or annoyance that may be generated in our mind because they just don't do what we want them to do. Okay? So watch that mind throughout the week. The mind that looks and says, why are they doing this? Why don't they do that? Okay. This being their stupid way, that being my excellent way. Okay. So observe that very judgmental mind, that wants everybody to do things our way, to be what we want them to be, and that is intolerant of anything else. Okay? And you'll see in retreat, sometimes just how picky our intolerance can be. You know, the famous one during a mantra retreat is people clicking their malas while they're reciting mantra. Okay. Now I know that this rivals the war in Afghanistan in terms of its level of severity. So says our mind, which is, you know, gets much more upset about our neighbor clicking their mala than it does about the war in Afghanistan. You know, what's happening to people there. So, you know, try and, you know, soften the mind. If you're a mala clicker, have some compassion for the people who may not necessarily like to hear mala clicking. If you're somebody who cannot endure mala clicking, have some compassion for that poor guy who's clicking his mala and doesn't even realize that it's causing you incredible suffering. Okay? So I know the example is stupid, but if we can't, but it's not stupid because people can get really upset about this. Okay? So just watch how the mind, you know, will find any excuse at all to criticize somebody or to find fault with somebody. Okay? And try and just, you know, drop that mind when you notice it. Because where does it get you to be judgmental? So, you know, in living together with a group of people, you know, and having compassion for them, it doesn't just mean enduring their mala clicking, okay? And enduring how pokey they are at the food line and how they leave their cup with their name on it all over the house. You know, but having compassion means seeing them as under the control of ignorance, afflictions, and karma, just like us. And how can we really feel good about ourselves if we're so involved in criticizing and finding fault at beings who are under the influence of afflictions and karma? Yeah? Who are in a state of being trapped in cyclic existence. They're already miserable. Yeah? What good does it do for us to put our criticism on their heads when they're already miserable and they're already subject to aging, sickness, and death? Okay? So when you think like that, a lot of the judgment and dislike and prejudice against other people disappears because we start to see them in a bigger perspective. Okay? So that's the perspective of compassion. Also, like I was saying, we can't really have compassion for beings unless we respect them. Yeah? So respecting them means being aware that we share the environment with them and that what we do influences them. Okay? And so that turns the mirror on ourselves to look at our own behavior and to ask, you know, how does my behavior influence other people in the group? Yeah? If I arrive late, if I don't show up at a session, how does that influence the other people in the group? Yeah? If I'm sharing my room and I leave the room a mess, how does that influence my roommate? Yeah? If I don't show up for my offering service, how does that influence the other people who I share the environment with. Okay? So, cultivating compassion in the sense of being quite mindful of our own behavior, being mindful of how we want to be, of our precepts, of our wish to contribute in a good way to the lives of the people around us. Okay? And so that turns it back on us, How am I acting? What am I doing with my speech? How am I thinking and feeling? Because all of that, doesn't just influence me, it affects the people around me. And if I have compassion for them, I want to affect them in a way that's going to benefit them, not in a way that is going to annoy them or cause them some kind of misery. Okay? So it's, it's a good way. It's about being aware of what's going on in us and how we interact with others. And, using our own behavior as an expression of our care and compassion for others. Okay? So that's a very nice way how mindfulness and compassion go together, to help us live in a good way. Okay, so those are things to keep in mind as we're just moving through the day, because the retreat isn't just what we do here in the sessions. The retreat is also what we're doing all the other time. Okay? The retreat is how we eat. It's how we walk in the garden. It's how we go to sleep. It's how we brush our teeth. It's, integrating our Dharma practice into all the aspects of our life. Okay? So it's not just what we're doing here. And also, the meditation and the teachings that we're doing here, that's the tip of the iceberg. Yeah? Don't think that, oh, this is my 1 week to practice Dharma, then I'll go back home and be normal. Okay? But rather, doing the retreat is an opportunity to set up some new habits and some good habits that you will then take home with you when you leave here and integrate into your life, at work, at school, everything you're doing. Okay? So the practice that you're doing here, you don't just do here and forget about as soon as you go down the hill. It's you take it with you, and as you practice it out there in the unreal world, then you really see how you're doing. Okay, and have a chance to strengthen what you've begun to practice here, what you've begun to understand here. Okay. Also, in studying the Dharma and in doing these practices, don't expect to understand everything right away. It's not like learning things at school, where we're expected to get it all and then tell the teacher what they already know on a test. Okay? But rather, it's, we will hear things that we may not totally understand. That's okay. It's setting some seeds, some imprints in our mind, and as we keep trying to understand those things, we keep coming back to them, month after month, year after year. And as we do, then our understanding deepens. So don't worry if everything isn't completely clear. Ask questions, of course. Yeah. But don't feel like, I gotta get it all, And the same thing in your meditations. Don't feel like I'm the only one who's distracted. It was so cute. I got an email recently from somebody who was talking about the Tara retreat from afar. and saying in the middle of the Tara retreat, he just felt like the practice was becoming very rote. But he didn't want to write in and say anything because it seemed like everybody was doing just fine and it was only him. Until there was somebody, who was brave enough to ask a question about what to do when the practice becomes rote. And then he felt very comforted by, oh, it's not just me. Yeah. So don't get locked into this idea of it's just me who can't concentrate. Yeah, this is a problem of everybody in samsara. Okay. Another little housekeeping thing is sometimes people want to talk to me privately, so there is an interview sign-up sheet on near the kitchen dining room area. The interviews are only 10 minutes long. Yeah, so you have to shorten your life story if you want to tell it. The reason for the short interviews are, first of all, because there's a lot of people. And second of all, because I think it's helpful for you to think, what is the major thing that I want to get some help on? Because as clear as you can get on your question, your doubt, then, no matter how long we talk, there's going to be a better chance for getting an answer that suits you. Whereas when we aren't clear on our own question and can't express it succinctly, then we may talk for an hour, but we may leave feeling like our doubt was not dealt with. Okay, so the 10 minutes also helps us think, okay, what really is the thing that I want to talk about? So the interviews will be under the walnut tree. That's the one towards the barn, near the barn and the gate back there. There's 2 chairs there. And while you're waiting for your interview, under the maple tree, a little distance away, there's a redwood bench or redwood seat, and you can wait there. So it's another way of encouraging you to take advantage of the beautiful garden and sit and read in it and enjoy looking at it. Okay, so just sign up for interviews if you want. When you sign, it's not required that you come; it's optional. When you sign up for the interview on a certain day, start with the 1 o'clock one. If you're on, because they're 1:15, 1:20, 1:30, okay, for each day. If you're on lunch cleanup, then see if somebody else can fill in for you when you do that, or try and sign up for the 1 o'clock one, because that you'll be able to, you're the first one, so there won't be any delay. Sign up for the one, then the next person, if you want that an interview on that day, then sign up for the 1:10, and the person after that at the 1:15. In other words, don't be the first person who signs up for a day and sign up for 1:30, because then there's gaps in between people, and also then sometimes somebody will sign up before you at the last minute, but I don't always look at the sign-up sheet at the last minute, so I don't know there's now somebody earlier, so then I don't come. So it's just easier. Start with one and work down, okay? Yeah. So, any questions so far just about this introduction and our being together in Chenrezi's Pure Land? Okay. So what I thought to do this session is to lead you in the Chenrezi practice. Yeah. Just a few words in advance about that. When we're doing the practice together as a group, we're doing the front generation practice with Chenrezig in front of us or above our head, okay? For the people who have had the initiation, you know, the 2-day Wang, you know, if you can do the self-generation very quickly, yeah, and that's fine, or do that when we have the period of the self-generation practice with the 6 deities during the period of silent meditation that is right before lunch, okay? If you don't know whether you've had the Chenrezig initiation or not, that means you probably haven't. Okay? Yeah, because it's only by taking that you are then able to do the self-generation. So, because many people have not had that, then when we do it together as a group, we stick with the front generation. In terms of chanting the mantra, we will chant it some out loud and some silently. If you don't know the long mantra by heart yet, you'll learn it very quickly, don't worry. Yeah, and you can practice it, or, you know, ask one of the Abbey residents. Maybe we can have a little chanting session to learn how to do that mantra. Yeah. Okay. So when we're doing the Chenrezig practice, we're using our imagination, and you might say, well, what use is using my imagination? Isn't Buddhism supposed to get me out of my head and into something where I stop imagining things? Well, we're imagining things all day long. We're visualizing all day long. We visualize chocolate cake. We visualize our boyfriend or girlfriend. We visualize the job we want. We visualize what we're going to buy with our paycheck. We visualize where we're going on our next vacation. Okay. We visualize all the time. So visualization is nothing new. Don't think that it's some foreign skill. Yeah. So it just means having an image in your mind. Yeah. So if I say pizza, do you have an image in your mind? If I say chocolate cake, yeah, do you have an image in your mind? Okay. So that's visualization. Yeah. So don't sit there and like, I gotta see it. You know, you're not trying to see it with your eyes. You're having an image in your mind. And, you know, our conceptual mind is going all the time. So this thing of creating images is nothing new. Usually our images are of objects of ignorance, anger, and attachment. Okay? And so we go indulge with what's called the 3 poisonous minds. So here, by imagining Chenrezig, Chenrezig is not an object of our ignorance, anger, and attachment, hopefully. Yeah, unless you find some reason to get angry at Chenrezig, even though he hasn't done anything to you. Okay, but it's flipping that imaginative ability in our mind to focus on something positive. Okay, and you'll notice that just when we're visualizing Chenrezig, okay, you won't get all the details clear. Everything won't be completely brilliant. That's okay. That's fine. The important thing is to just get the sense that you're in the presence of an extremely compassionate being who is going to help you to be more compassionate, more loving, more caring, more altruistic. Okay? So there's something about when you look at Chenrezig's eyes, you know. There's one statue of Chenrezig there. and one of the tangas of Chenrezig there, that when you look at Chenrezig's eyes, there's some kind of peace there, you know, some peace is expressed by the look in the Buddha's eyes that affects us on a real gut level, I think, yeah? And so we're really dealing with symbols here when we're visualizing Chenrezig, and the way different images and things and objects affect our mind. Okay? So when we're visualizing Chenrezig, now let Chenrezig look at you with acceptance and compassion. You know, I always heard my teacher say something like that, and it took me many years to realize that I usually skipped that part because I didn't know what I couldn't imagine somebody looking at me with acceptance and compassion. You know, looking at me with criticism and judgment, yeah, I could imagine that. But acceptance and compassion was a new one. I actually kind of felt a little bit vulnerable. Yeah. Strange, isn't that? What we want most of all is somebody to look at us with conception and compassion, and acceptance and compassion. Reverse the syllables. What we want most of all is that, and yet that's what we feel vulnerable, you know, about. So kind of let that happen, you know, and see if imagining, you know, thinking of the Buddha looking at us with acceptance and compassion gives us some ability within ourselves to look at others with acceptance and compassion. Okay? So try that, you know. You look at Chenrezig's peaceful expression towards us, and we feel that. And then you think, okay, that same feeling is how I want to look at others. And so then you practice looking at others, you know, in the environment where you came from, whatever, looking at others with that same feeling that is conveyed by those eyes of compassion. Yeah? And see how that feels. Okay? So you don't need to fight with Chenrezig, saying, oh, you're just a visualization, you don't really exist. And you're cluttering my mind with more conception. And, you know, whatever else we dream up. Yeah. Rather, just kind of try and relax and experiment with the practice. And experiment with acceptance and compassion towards yourself and towards others. Okay? See where that takes you. Okay. So now that I've talked most of the meditation time, we'll do the practice rather quickly. Okay. Let me talk a little bit more. Okay. Sometimes when you lead yourself on the practice, you will do it very slowly. Okay. Sometimes you will do certain parts slowly and other parts quickly. That's fine. When you do it on your own, just time it the way you want to. Okay? So that each time you do the practice, it turns out different. It's not some cookie cutter practice where you always have to spend, 2 minutes and 39 seconds on refuge and bodhicitta, and 3 minutes and 4 seconds on the four immeasurables. Don't look at it like that, okay? Sometimes you might spend a long time on those. Sometimes you might go through them very quickly. That's all okay, yeah? This is a very flexible kind of meditation guide. Sometimes if you're really in a hurry, you might you can skip the 8 verses of thought transformation. You know? On the other hand, sometimes it's the 8 verses of thought transformation that you really need to spend a lot of time on, so don't skip them, and do some of the other parts more quickly. Okay? Because sometimes there might just be one of these verses that applies to you. Okay? Maybe. Okay? Then similarly, if you're doing the self-generation with the 6 deity practice, then the purification meditation that's on page 6, that you could skip and just go right into the self-generation practice with the 6 deities. Okay? So, you know, how you do this is going to be a little different and a little bit up to you each time. Okay? So, we will, because we have little time, you know, go through it at a good speed, but enough for you to get some sense of it. So let's start out just focusing on our breath for a minute, letting our mind relax. So in the space in front of you, imagine the divine form of Thubten Chodron, who embodies all the compassion and wisdom of all the Buddhas. This whole visualization is made of light, nothing concrete, completely transparent, intangible, and yet it's there. So Chodron stands on a lotus, an open lotus flower and a flat moon. His body is very beautiful. So just as our body language is an expression of our mental state, so too how Chodron looks is an expression of his mental state. So he has long, narrow, very beautiful eyes, and is adorned with jewels that represent the 6 far-reaching practices. He has 11 heads that are looking out in all the directions. And on the bottom row of heads, the center face is white, and the one on his right is green, and on his left, red. And above that, his center face is green, on his right, red, on his left, white. Above those, the center face is red, the right white, and the left green. And above those is a dark blue face, very wrathful. But the wrath is expressed towards the afflictions, towards the impediments. And on top of that is the red head of Amitabha Buddha, peaceful and smiling. Chenrezi's first two hands are at his heart with the palms together, holding a wish-fulfilling gem. So that's our Buddha nature. It's also our sincere aspiration. On his right, the second hand holds a crystal rosary, which reminds us to recite the mantra. The next hand is in the gesture of giving realization, and nectar flows from that automatically, going to the hungry ghosts, curing their thirst and hunger. And then the fourth hand holds the Dharma wheel, showing his ability to give teachings on the path to enlightenment. On his left side, the second hand holds a golden lotus. And the lotus represents bodhisattvas. Its roots are in the mud, but it is untainted by the mud. So too, a bodhisattva is born in the realm of suffering, but is not tainted by the suffering or afflictions. The third hand holds a vase containing nectar of compassionate wisdom. And the last hand holds a bow and arrow that symbolizes defeat of the four maras, the four destructive forces, such as death, the afflictions, the aggregates under the control of ignorance and karma, interfering beings. And then his other 992 hands have the palms open in the gesture of giving the highest realization, and they're stretched out in many levels in all directions, reaching out to sentient beings anywhere and everywhere to extend compassionate help. And an antelope skin is draped over his left shoulder. And this symbolizes that hatred is overcome by peaceful, compassionate wisdom. And then we're looking at Chenrezi. Imagine your mother on your left side, your father on your right side. Doesn't matter if your parents are still alive or not, you can imagine them there. Think of all the people that you don't like, that disturb you, and they're in front of you, also looking at Chenrezi. So to see Chenrezi, you have to be aware of those people in front of you too. And all around you are friends and strangers, as far as the eye can see and beyond. And so when we take refuge, we think that we're leading all these beings in turning to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha for spiritual guidance. And we think that they're all generating bodhicitta together with us. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May they abide in this way. I shall cause them to abide in this way. Guru Deity, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and its causes. May they have these. I shall cause them to have these. Guru Deity, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and its causes. May they be free. I shall cause them to be free. Guru Deity, please inspire me to be able to do so. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted from upper rebirth and liberation's excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I shall cause them never to be parted. Guru Deity, please inspire me to be able to do so. Especially for the sake of all mother sentient beings, I must quickly and more quickly in this very life attain the precious state of complete and perfect Buddhahood. Therefore I shall practice the gradual path of Guru Chenrezig Yoga. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all my negative actions accumulated since beginning this time, and rejoice in the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate all the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, four lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. The objects of attachment, aversion, and ignorance, friends, enemies, and strangers, my body, wealth, and enjoyments, I offer these without any sense of loss. Please accept them with pleasure and inspire me and others to be free from the three poisonous attitudes. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. O Arya compassionate eyed one, who is the treasure of compassion, I request you, please listen to me. Please guide myself, mothers and fathers, in all 6 realms, to be free quickly from the great ocean of samsara. Thy request yet the vast and profound, peerless awakening mind may grow with the tear of your great compassion. Please cleanse all karmas and delusion. Please lead with your hand of compassion me and my greators to fields of bliss. Please, Amitabha and Chenrezig, in all my lives be virtuous friends. Show well beyond deceptive pure path, and quickly place us in Buddha's state. Then we'll read the 8 verses, just going straight through them without pausing. With the thought of attaining enlightenment for the welfare of all beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will constantly practice holding them dear. Whenever I am with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all. And from the very depth of my heart, I will respectfully hold others as supreme. In all actions, I will examine my mind, and the moment a disturbing attitude arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly confront and avert it. Whenever I meet a person of bad nature who is overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering, I will hold such a rare one dear, as if I had found a precious treasure. When others, out of jealousy, mistreat me with abuse, slander, and so on, I will practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to them. When someone I have benefited and in whom I have placed great trust hurts me very badly, I will practice seeing that person as my supreme teacher. In short, I will offer directly and indirectly every benefit and happiness to all beings, my mothers. I will practice in secret, taking upon myself all their harmful actions and sufferings. Without these practices being defiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, I will practice without grasping to release all beings from the bondage of the disturbing, unsubdued mind and karma. So now think that Chenrezig comes on top of your head, facing the same way as you. And think of a Chenrezig on top of the heads of all the sentient beings around you, the ones you like, the ones you don't like, the strangers. And at the heart of each of these Chenrezis, there is a horizontal open lotus and a flat moon disk on top of it. And standing upright at the center of the moon is the seed syllable Hri, which is the essence of Chenrezi's omniscient mind of wisdom and compassion. And the Hri is surrounded by the letters of the long mantra that are around the, stand near the edge of the moon disk, and then the letters of Om Mani Padme Hung's within that, in a smaller circle around the Hri. And there, all of this is made of very beautiful, radiant white light. And from the mantra and the Hri, much white light and nectar, which are the nature of Chenrezi's blissful mind of wisdom and compassion. All this light and nectar flow down through Chenrezi into your body. Entering through the top of your head, they just permeate your whole nervous system, fill every cell of your body. So really make sure this light and nectar goes everywhere in your body. It doesn't skip certain areas. And in doing so, it purifies all the afflictions, all the negative karmic seeds. It heals all illness and injury. And eliminates any kind of obscuration. So really concentrate on this white light and nectar, completely filling your body and mind. And as they fill every single cell in your body and mind, there's no space in there anymore for disturbing feelings or disturbing emotions or doubt. And as this light and nectar continually flow down and fill you up, think that the light and nectar coming from the Hri and mantra letters in the Chenrezis that are on the crowns of all the sentient beings around you, that light and nectar also flows down into the sentient beings and completely fills them up, healing all disease, healing all obscurations, removing the imprints of disturbing karma, completely filling the minds of sentient beings, like your mind, with blissful, receptive compassion and wisdom. And as you continue to focus on the visualization, we'll also chant the mantra 3 times out loud, and then the short mantra silently. Nama Ratnatrayaya Namo Arya Jnana Sagara Bharasana Bharataya Tathagataya Arhate Samya Sambuddhaya Namo Sarvatathagate Arhatebe Samya Sambuddhebe Namo Arya Valokite Sharaya Bodhisattvaya Mahasattvaya Mahakaranikaya Tayata Om Dada Dada Diri Diri Duru Duru Itewate Sale Sale Pa Sale Pa Sale Kusume Kusume Wari Yele Mele Sola Panaya Soha Namo Ratnatrayaya Namo Arya Jnana Sagara Bharasana Bharataya Tathagataya Arhate Samya Sambuddhaya Namo Sarva Tathagatebe Arhatebe Samya Sambuddhebe Namo Arya Valokite Sharaya Bodhisattvaya Mahasattvaya Mahakaranikaya Tayata Om Dada Dada Diri Diri Duru Duru Vitevate Sale Sale Pa Sale Pa Sale Kusume Wari Yele Mele Sete Sola Panaya Soha Namo Ratnatrayaya Namo Arya Jnana Sagara Bharasana Bharataya Tathagataya Arhate Samya Sambuddhaya Namo Sarva Tathagatebe Arhatebe Samya Sambuddhebe Namo Arya Valokite Sharaya Bodhisattvaya Mahasattvaya Mahakaranikaya Tayata Om Dada Dada Diri Diri Duru Duru Vitevate Sale Sale Pa Sale Pa Sale Kusume Kusume Wa Ile Mele Sete Sala Panaya Soha Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Let's take a little time now to do some reflection meditation or checking meditation about the possibility of becoming enlightened. And so to think that, contemplate first of all that the afflictions that are the source of our being stuck in cyclic existence, that these things are not the nature of the mind. In other words, the ultimate nature of the mind is empty of inherent existence. It's not that the ultimate nature of the mind is afflicted and ignorant. The ultimate nature of the mind is empty of inherently existent afflictions. Just ponder that for a little bit. Get a feeling for the mind being without an inherently afflicted nature. So it's not the case that when we search for the ultimate nature of the mind, we find something defiled, something limited, something contaminated. That's not the case. When we look for the ultimate nature of the mind, we simply find its lack of inherent existence. And a second reason why it's possible to attain enlightenment is that the afflictions themselves can be eliminated because they depend on an erroneous base. In other words, the afflictions arise in dependence upon the ignorance that grasps at inherent existence. And since that ignorance grasps at something that does not exist at all, it's possible to eliminate it by generating the wisdom that sees the opposite, the wisdom that sees emptiness. And when that ignorance has been eliminated, then all the afflictions that depend on it have been eliminated. Then the karma created in dependence on the afflictions ceases. And then so does the suffering rebirths in cyclic existence. So in that way, think that the afflictions can be eliminated because they misapprehend the nature of reality. So when we see what reality is, that ignorance can no longer remain there. So because the nature of the mind is pure, because the afflictions can be eliminated, therefore it's possible to attain liberation and enlightenment. And so now let's make a strong determination to live a meaningful life and to do all of our actions with the bodhicitta motivation, aspiring for full enlightenment for the well-being of all sentient beings. I think that Chenrezig is very pleased with our aspiration to be of benefit to sentient beings, because that's who Chenrezig cares about more than anything else. It's all the sentient beings. And so being very pleased with us, Chenrezig melts into light. And then that ball of light absorbs into us from the crown of our head, coming to rest at the center of our chest, at our heart chakra. But remember, it's light, it's nothing solid or heavy. So this light of compassion and wisdom, again merging with our own mind. And so feel that your mind is in the nature of great compassion and wisdom, and that your body is completely clear and intangible, just made of light. Then let's dedicate. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the enlightened state of generosity, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Due to the positive potential accumulated by myself and others in the past, present, and future, may anyone who merely sees, hears, remembers, touches, or talks to me be freed in that very instant from all suffering and abide in happiness forever. In all rebirths, may I and all sentient beings be born in a good family, have clear wisdom and great compassion, be free of pride and devoted to our spiritual masters, and live in accordance with our vows and commitments to the spiritual masters. In whatever guise you appear, O Chenrezig, whatever your retinue, your lifespan and pure life, whatever your name most noble and holy, may I and all others attain only these. By the force of these praises and requests made to you, may all disease, poverty, fighting, and quarrels be calm. May the Dharma and all auspiciousness increase throughout the worlds and directions where I and all others dwell. So try to maintain that awareness of Chenrezig in the break time.